program that we're having today is relevant and important for the working class in the United States today, and taking responsibility and accountability for what the United States AFL-CIO has been doing. So Lou Wolf is the next speaker. He's with Covert Action. Welcome, Lou Wolf.
Thank you very much. I'm in awe of David Hempson for what you just revealed to us. So much hard information. That's what we need. The truth, unvarnished. Sometimes we say here, you know, why don't you tell us what you really feel? You told us what you really feel. You brought us a lot of new information, and I couldn't agree more with you to take away the Meany Award. You know, we rewrote in the magazine, Covert Action Magazine, which I'll talk about here, a lot about George Meany. He was a real meanie. He was mobbed up to here with the mob, the mafia. Let's be clear here. And it was well known, it was public information that he was this, and still he was the citadel of the AFL-CIO. And people who had to work with him in those days, I used to know some of them, they kept their distance. They walked away from him and not saluting him or not seeing him as their leader. I once visited South Africa. I came in through Botswana, where my sister and brother-in-law were living in Gaborone. And how did I get my passport, my visa rather? I went to Barclays Bank to get a visa to go into South Africa. I took a train down and was there. I'll just give you a short story. I was taken as a journalist to a gold mine, where I was taken down in an elevator, way underground. It took us about 8 minutes in the elevator going down, and there was 2 elevators under apartheid, one for white workers, white miners, and one for black miners. And so the white miners, I'm being white, that was the elevator I was in, and they started telling me, well, you know, last week one of the black workers, and they used another word which I've since learned was the equivalent to the N-word in this country, and one of those elevators went down. Everybody was killed. Funny, funny. Then I was taken, as a journalist again, to a 5-acre lake out in the boonies, outside Pretoria. And this was a lake of gold. It was gold, gold, gold. It was filled with gold, as far as my eye could see. 5 acres. But I wasn't allowed to take photos of that. And so I learned a lot about apartheid, seeing it up close. In fact, I met these 2 men on the street corner in Pretoria, and they were joking, and I overheard them. And they said, "What's the biggest crime in history of the world?" The other one said, "What is it?" And he said, "One of those buses that carries the black people, Blanque, Ni Blanque and Blanque, Ni Blanque is white, the Blanque bus, one of them going over a cliff and everyone's gone, dead." So, you know, when David Hempson tells us about U.S. support for Buthelezi, it comes as no surprise. We have known that over the years. I think Nelson Mandela was very conscious of it. So it's a long and ugly story. I want to tell you something more. The CIA, I've done a lot of research on the CIA, never had a clearance in my life. I never worked for the government. I never would. I was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. Actually ended up in Laos, next door to Vietnam. And I learned firsthand, I'd never heard of the CIA at age 24. What is that? But I found it, seeing it up close, seeing CIA people, they all had a uniform. Didn't say CIA, but they all looked alike. They all wore plaid trousers and and shirts, what do you call them, plaid shirts like you're wearing there. And so my point is that we knew who they were, but the CIA people, guess what? The Lao used to point them out. They knew their names. How in hell did they know their names? Because they had done their research. They were unknown, I think, to the U.S. at that point, that a lot of them were with the Pathet Lao, which was the Neo-Lao Haksat, the organization of the communist movement against the royal government, Royal Lao government, as it was called, the RLG. Now, I mention this because what is the CIA doing today? Together, I should add very clearly, with the Pentagon, they have, you talk about Hollywood, they have people, two people, one of them, his name is Chase Brandon. He's been the director of media operations with Hollywood. He's the liaison with Hollywood. He was from 1996 to 2007, but his background was as a 40-year veteran in special operations and psychological warfare. This man has been around the block. He actually wrote the script, most of the script of a film, a 2003 film, The Recruit, which was to popularize the CIA. He was also, his film credits included a technical consultant role in the following films: The Recruit, Sum of All Fears, Enemy of the State, Bad Company, Mission Impossible 1, 2, and 3, Meet the Parents, which we thought was a comedy, In the Company of Spies, The Good Shepherd, Charlie Wilson's War, Spy Game, The Interpreter, and others. And he's also been the technical consultant and advisor for television programs, including ABC's acclaimed miniseries, The Path to 9/11, as well as other network series such as The Agency, Alias, 24, you remember they featured a lot of torture, JAG, and Air America. Air America was kind of a spoof film about the CIA's airline. He also made numerous appearances on Discovery, the Learning Channel, History Channels. He was a host and narrator or commentator with PBS, A&E, the A&E network, and other documentaries. He has been interviewed in Access Hollywood, Entertainment Tonight, and film industry programs. I mention this to say also, and we've written about this operation very recently. If folks are interested, look at our website, covertactionmagazine.com. We just published 2 articles about the media operations of the CIA and also about the Pentagon. Let me talk about the Pentagon. Pentagon has a similar guy like Chase Brandon. I'm forgetting his name right now, but so they do the same thing as the CIA. But for years, the CIA was very much secretive, and they still are, but they suddenly had a revelation. We have to popularize the CIA. We have to recruit more and more people, including, more recently, people of color and women. They never did this before, except as secretaries. And so I'm talking about for operations officers, clandestine operation officers. They're the ones, not in the intelligence branch, the analysis branch of the CIA. It's called the factory, and DO, which stands for Directorate of Operations. So what the CIA is doing now, and now with the Pentagon, there's much more militarization of the CIA than there ever was today. They actually have a branch called military operations. That comes as no secret or no surprise, but it is a fact that the CIA does an awful lot more than collect intelligence, and it includes a lot of killing. and a lot of torture, and a lot of what are known as in the labor business, they're called kept unions, right? Unions that we control. Whereas the CIA, when it recruits people, whether they're Americans or nationals of other countries from across the globe, they are trained not only to keep secrets and to keep their identity secret, unlike what happened in Laos, people could know exactly who they were and their names. Their tradecraft, as it's called, tradecraft in the CIA is what it's all about. They get training at a place in Virginia called The Farm, which is about 30 miles south on I-95, south of Washington. What? Oh, 5? Okay. So let me just say quickly here that Zelensky, did you know that Vladimir Zelensky today is supposed to be this great Ukrainian courageous man facing the Russians and so forth? He's actually, and I read this yesterday online, he's being promoted to receive a Nobel Prize. Hello? And this man has aligned himself openly with Nazis. I'm talking about Ukrainian Nazis. If you study the history of the operations against Ukraine didn't start yesterday or last week or last month. It started in World War II. There were thousands of people, of Ukrainians, who fought on the side of the Nazis, the German Nazis. Today, they take off their shirts and they reveal their tattoos on their backs, swastikas. They have meetings that go Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler. They use a code, a Nazi code, which is 44777. That's an old Nazi code. And there are photos of Zelensky with these people. And you can find them yourself, and you read in our magazine. But I want to just say real quick that about AFL-CIO. We used to call it AFL-CIA. Why? That might sound funny, but that's quite revealing and quite accurate. And I used to know the librarian at the AFL-CIO in Washington. She's unfortunately deceased now. She used to talk about the stuff that went on down there in her office. And they had a man there, I've forgotten his name now, but he was a CIA asset and CIA officer. I don't want to forget to mention here that George Soros, some of you know the name, is being parodied and ridiculed by the far right. Well, it's because George Soros gives away millions and millions of dollars. We wrote an expose about him. The only expose ever written about George Soros was in our magazine back in 2007, I think, in one of our back issues. And it revealed his ties with the CIA. Mainly what Soros does, he funds media operations all over the globe. Needless to say, there are media operations that serve the interests of the US of A. When they talk about American interests, what does the CIA do? It does its dirty deeds, likewise with the Pentagon, to protect American interests, whether it be gold mines, whether it be oil, whether it be natural gas, you name it, they do it. And the last thing I'll say is that we have to understand that nearly every major event in this country and in many other countries, the official story that is served up to us in the mainstream media almost always, I won't say always, almost always turns out to be a false story, a lie, filled with lies. Whether it's 9/11, whether it's Oklahoma City bombing, whether it's even COVID-19. I won't go into that now because we don't have time, but I will just let you know that the U.S. intelligence apparatus, it's 17 different agencies, not only the CIA and the FBI, there's 15 others, military and non-military. The first mention ever made about Homeland Security was, guess who, by who? Can anybody know? Adolf Hitler. You look it up. He talked about Homeland Security. This term, which was adopted after 9/11, immediately after 9/11, they created the second largest government agency, which is now Department of Homeland Security. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you. Oh, I did want to mention one other thing. Here's a book that I would urge everyone to read. It's by a great, I consider him one of the foremost investigative journalists, Max Blumenthal. The title of the book is The Management of Savagery. You don't have to go out and buy it. You can probably find it in your library. This is a book, a must-read book. And I mention it only because it talks about the U.S.-funded assassination squads in many countries, where they decapitated people, as you know, in certain countries, public decapitations. The Saudis just decapitated, I think, 64 men on one day, two weeks ago. In one unpaid, and this is very tough to say, but they took a woman, didn't decapitate her, they sliced her in half this way. Just picture that. So, and this is funded by our taxes. Thank you.